is continually evolving. Today, we witness a shift in tourism paradigm.
And the cultural knowledge that we have is very important.
This one is an Ifugao Bulul that has been lent to us.
To silk screen. So what we need to do is just get the first layer, on the top layer, the measurement.
We will now make sure that you will not be consultant dependent, and you will now be able to put together your own museums with least assistance from the others.
Basic tools that we need to set up the studio. A camera that you're comfortable with, together with it.
Also, generally, museum staff are advised not to pursue.
In doing that, I'd like to focus on the two important words in that formulation, which is to curate and to exhibit. To curate is to...
So why are museums important? Because museums and galleries give us an insight into the history of humankind.
So even John Dewey, who is a prominent leader in
Okay, good morning everybody. Welcome to week 2 of our museum management training. Maayong buntag sa tanan, maabig abuklak, kumuyo halban, maupay nga aga na nga natanan, mapleng ja agsapa, mapod an algo dayu at maayong aga sa inyong lahat. Good morning, everyone, to our participants and our panelists for week 2 of the museum management training. Previously, we had an opening of the training, and we also had Dr. Raimundo Rovillos, who gave us the importance of university museums in tourism and creative industry. So today, we will have Mr. Dannie Alvarez for the talk on the role of museum boards in university museums. And tomorrow we have Professor Carlos Tatel from the Department of Anthropology in UP-Diliman to talk about the role and context of disaster risk management, no, not in general. Okay. So we would like to welcome again our participants, and I would like to start again from Mindanao, from Region 12. I would just like to call them Region 12, Ramon Magsaysay, Laureate Library and Museum, okay, from Region 12, no? Would like also to acknowledge Ateneo de Davao University from Region 11. We have University of Southern Philippines, or USEP. We have Holy Cross of Davao College Museum, and University of Mindanao, Matina Campus, University of Mindanao Memorabilia and Cultural Heritage Center. Okay, thank you for participating, and we also would like to acknowledge Region 10, Capital University Museum of Three Cultures, Liceo de Cagayan University, the La Castilla Museum. We have Mindanao State University, Iligan Institute of Technology. Then we have Mindanao State University, Iligan from the College of Arts and Social Sciences. And then from Region 9, we have Museo de Zamboanga. Okay, and then tomorrow, I'll also greet and acknowledge the participants from Visayas region. Okay, maayong buntag po sa inyong lahat. Okay. So we just like to give you some announcement, no, that our recorded webinars are now available at our museum website. Yung dalawang sessions previously, for the March 3 and 4 sessions are now available. So you can just go to our museum website, eto siya, and then just click on education. Okay, and we have here year 2 museum management training, and the links to the first day last March 3 and on March 2 are now available for you, for those who have missed it, and for those who would like to listen more about the training. Okay, so today we'll have other reminders, no? Please accomplish the feedback form that was given to you through a link. Okay, so we will have your attendance, no? So answering the feedback will help our staff in monitoring your attendance to levels 1, 2, and 3. And the webinars, no, once you have completed levels 1 or levels 2 and 3, we will issue the certificates for those who are asking if they can get the certificate in a day, no? So we usually give the certificates after you have completed the webinar. Okay, let us just have some a little check, no, on our day for today. We would like to just give this a little reminder, no, for everybody. Okay, so I would just like to give a definition, a brief definition, to remind what museums are all about. No, so this is actually the 1946 definition of a museum. No, so matagal na to, medyo obsolete na yung definition ng museum, no, in 1946 from the International Council of Museums, or the ICOM. So it goes, a museum includes all collections open to the public of artistic, technical, scientific, historical, or archaeological material, including zoos and botanical gardens, but excluding libraries, except insofar as they maintain permanent exhibition rooms. But this has been revised, no? Every year ni-revise ng ICOM ang definition ng museum because it has to go with the times, no, and the changes happening around us. So the zoos and then the botanical gardens are, the libraries, which is also the archives, have separated itself, no, from the definition of a museum. So now the current definition, the 2021 definition on what is a museum, refers to a museum that is non-profit, permanent institution in the service of society and its development, open to the public, which acquires, conserves, researches, communicates, and exhibits the tangible and intangible heritage of humanity and its environment for the purposes of education, study, and enjoyment. So if you look at this definition, there are important keywords that we have to remember, when setting up or reinvigorating our museums. So first, we have to the museum acquires artifacts, and relevant materials, for exhibition. Then, of course, if you have the artifacts inside the museum, because this is a tangible record of people's identity, culture, tradition, and values, the museum staff, or the entire team, have the responsibility to conserve these artifacts. And then third, of course, the museum also needs to conduct its own researches about those artifacts and how this is related to people, and their culture. And then the fourth one is it also communicates what are the underlying biography of these objects and how they are related to a particular society, and how can that feature the highlights of a beautiful culture, or reflecting of the values, of that particular society. And the fifth one is it also mounts exhibitions, as a way of conveying this message, or as a way of complementing pedagogy for us in the university for teaching, and then of course to highlight what makes people and how are they understood through material culture, because all of these things, the knowledge, practices, tradition, values, and how they project certain messages through the understanding of these artifacts. So to summarize, the museums acquire, conserve, research, communicate, and exhibit their collection to the public. Now, what is now the purpose of a museum? So take note that this is for education. So as an HEI university, the primary purpose of our museum is to educate our students, our faculty, our community, and the world. What are we in these artifacts that we exhibit in our museums? The second one is to study. Like I said, the role of university museums is to complement learning of our students. For faculty, it's also to complement pedagogy. Kaya magkaakibat yung museums and the university in studying about cultures of different societies. And the third one is, of course, for enjoyment. If you go back to the original definition of a museum, it comes from the word musée or muses, and museum is a place where you can have contemplation, to reflect on this things that you see around you. So it's a place for contemplation, where you can find enjoyment and confidence and appreciation of beautiful things, no, around you that are exhibited in the museum. So the musée, the Greek word, is actually a seat of the muses, no. And if you contextualize the definition of the museum, it is us, no, going to the museum and contemplating on this, the mystery of the artifacts, or even the messages it hopes to convey. Okay, so that is just a brief summary, no, just to put us on board on the definition of the museum. Now, for today's talk, it is important to have the museum board, no. So I just want to show you that Museo Kordilyera, since its inception, no, when we started 6 years ago, in our concept paper, we have included the museum board, no, because this is important to identify where the channels of leadership would be, and of course, where you have this hierarchy or people who are working behind, no, the museum to implement policies, to approve exhibitions, to look for funding, no, for your museum activities. So let me just quickly run through before we proceed to the actual talk, no, of Sir Dannie Alvarez. Okay, so in the Museo Kordilyera, we have the chancellor. It's a university-wide position, no, in the university. Then you have two vice chancellors. One is the vice chancellor for administration. The other one is the vice chancellor for academic affairs. And under the VCAA is the director of the museum. And then before that, we usually have in the organizational chart is a curator, no, in the museum. But now, since we don't have, no, yung exhibition at this time, no, so sometimes the director performs the curator's role also, no, but technically there should be a curator, no, in your museum board. And then below that, these are the composition of the museum board. We have the director of the Kordilyera Study Center, which is the research arm of the university. So if we recall, we should have research, no, in our exhibitions, no, in our collections. So any output, no, given to the Kordilyera Study Center of the university can also be used as a basis, no, for exhibitions. And then the other members include the CAC, or these are the three different colleges in UP Baguio. The CAC is the College of Arts and Communication, the CSS, College of Social Sciences, then the College of Science. No? So the college will nominate a representative to sit in the board of the museum. Then, of course, you have the CCA, which is the Committee on Culture and the Arts. So this is a committee that takes care of the arts and culture activities and programs of the museum. No? So it is also included there. Then we have one program development associate. Currently, the person who sits in the museum board is our professor emeritus, who have helped us in the conceptualization and establishment of the Museo Kordilyera for the last 6 years. No? And the program development associate does not have a voting power, no? But he can be consulted for important matters, no? Like policy making, approval of certain activities, and others. Okay, so this is the composition of the Museo Kordilyera board. Okay, so we can entertain questions because we will tie this up with the talk of Sir Dannie. Okay, and other admin concerns, no? So for those who are just coming in, we have this structure of the museum management training. Like I said, we have new participants coming in which we require to have, and then the second one is the returning participants from year 1. And like I said, we kindly ask our new participants to have this leveling off by listening to the required archive webinars, no, available from our museum website. So you can listen to this at your own pace, no, as long as you complete all the talks, so that you will have a background when you go to year 2. No, it's now ongoing, and the language and then the structure will be familiar to you. And if you have questions, you can actually raise them in year 2 of the museum management training. Then we proceed all of this. New participants and returning participants will now proceed to MMT2, the museum management training. So this is now ongoing. Then if you have completed MMT1 and MMT2, you now are eligible to join us in MMT3. This is another project under CHED on museums and virtuality, which will be implemented mid-2022 to 2023. So this project will actually assist, no, HEI museums to create their own museum websites, and of course, the 3D virtual museum. Okay, so that can be discussed later on. So just to reiterate our schedule, level 1 is based on the TNA that will run from March to June 2022. We have 10 resource person, 10 museum consultants, and 10 trainers. Level 2 will be more applied, technical assistance and hands-on workshop and content creation by June to July 2022. This will be held in Baguio City as soon as if the travel restrictions are relaxed, no, until then by June. If not, we will do online webinar. The composition will be 10 museum consultants plus those qualified participants from level 1 training. Then the level 3 will be the MMT technical team plus museum consultants in situ, no, to visit your museums by August to September. No? So it will be the consultants and the Museo Kordilyera team that will visit your museums and see what can be provided, not to help improve your museum. So that will be around August to September. Again, like I emphasized, this will be based on the readiness of the HEI museums, no, to accommodate us. Of course, dapat ready na kayo, and we will see how that can be arranged later on. And then we have, of course, the application and setting up of your museums, or refurbishing or reinvigorating or establishing your museums later on. So that will be on October to December, and it will spill over from January to March 2023. And we hope that the result will be an exhibition, creation of your logos, no, or setting up your own museums and programs for your respective museums. Okay, so for any information about the Museo Kordilyera, we have a website, and of course, you can email us anytime if you have further queries. Okay, thank you so much and have a good day. And let's now proceed to our speaker for today, which is our dear Sir Dannie Alvarez. Okay, let me just quickly introduce him. Okay. So Mr. Dannie Alvarez is one of our consultants of Museo Kordilyera when it started, no? And until now, we still have a very good connection with him in relation to museum work. So Sir Dannie, as we fondly call him, is currently the president of the Alliance of Greater Manila Area Museums, otherwise known as the AGMAM, the Regional Association of NCR Museums. He is also the current museum administrator of Yuchengco Museum in Makati. He served 2 terms as member of the Executive Committee of the Subcommission on Cultural Heritage and as head of the National Committee on Museums, or NCOM, of the National Commission for Culture and the Arts. He is the founding president of the Philippine Association of Museums, or PAMI, in 1987, and he is the trustee of the Promoting Advocacy for the Arts Foundation Incorporated, or PAAFI, and the Bencab Art Foundation. Mr. Alvarez also worked in several museums in various capacities as a curator, administrator, consultant, such as the Metropolitan Museum and the Ayala Museum. As a museum consultant, he previously assisted the setup and reinvigorations of different museums all over the country, including Museo Iloilo in Iloilo City, the National Artist Botong Francisco Studio Museum in Angono, Rizal, of course, Museo Kordilyera, the Nueva Vizcaya People's Museum and Library in Bayombong, Nueva Vizcaya, and Museo Esarog in Goa in Camarines Sur, to name a few. Some of the exhibitions that he has curated were of the national artist Jose Hoya, Napoleon Abueva, and Bencap. And aside from his extensive museum practice, he has also worked in advertising, public relations, event management, and book production. Okay, without further ado, we would like to welcome Sir Dannie. Okay, hello, Sir Dannie. Okay, so we'd like to have the presentation now. Don?
Thank you very much, Dr. Ikin, for your introduction. For the first talk on the role of museum boards in university museum, we would like to inform ourselves how a museum board operates and how important it is for museums. For most of us who had already established our museums, it's not late to put together what we call a museum board, to be able to set the directions of our programs and exhibitions. The important role of a museum board is governance, because we need to have an efficient body for which the museum will have to report to. Because boards will have to make decisions for the museum. It should be able to allocate or oversee the allocation of resources, personnel, or funding. It must be able to steer the museum and oversee the achievements of results. And they are the ones who are held accountable for all decisions of the museum. This definition is clearly underpinned by the need for the trustee and boards collectively to remain abreast of the changing needs of the organization. Museum boards are not very difficult to put together. Number one, it must have a good set of officers, and these are normally organic from the university or college, right? They are composed of faculty members or the administrative officers of the university. Should there be a need to invite outsiders, and these are perhaps community leaders, cultural aficionados of your community, they may be considered ex officio members. For very specialized museum, perhaps like a science museum, there might be also a need to put together some kind of an advisory board, because you might require highly technical assistance from people outside of the university. The museum board of a university museum is quite unique because, number one, the museum, the university museum, is expected to be an educational resource, not only for the faculty and students, but for the community as well. As a university museum, it is the lead agency in cultural heritage awareness and diversity of the community. And as a university museum, it is expected that all initiatives are research-based, be it an education or information platform. And as a community outreach, the University Museum must be the community reference center for culture and heritage. What will be our suggested composition of our boards? Well, ideally, we should have a minimum of 5 members and a maximum of 7 members. Again, as I repeat, majority of the members should come from the organic university faculty, and we will suggest that perhaps the tenure should be at least 2 years, not less, renewable, and perhaps extended. They should be available to meet at least 4 times a year per academic year, to be more clear about it. Not the calendar year, but the academic year. And of course, the chairman of the board is reserved to the highest ranking officer, either be the president, the chancellor, or the dean of the university. The number one important asset of a board member is access to resources, be it money or available educational materials from partner universities here and abroad. And they should be available also for solicitation, grant writing, and networking. Networking is very important for local museums simply because they need to touch base with the national level and of course international level as well. Number 2, they must have very, very clear community connections. Again, in the educational sphere, right? And they should also have very good connection with big or small business, philanthropy, and more importantly, scholarship resources. There should be also some kind of a requirement, more or less, that you are respectable in your community, right? Meaning community not only of your city or municipality, but the community of museum workers or community of of scholars. And international network connections is a big plus. A museum board member must be a very good motivator. There should be willingness to work. Your personal connection with the museum's vision and scholarship stature is a big plus. Fourthly, personal style. You should be a very good communicator. You should be a visionary and a strategist. With the help of the museum director and the staff, the curatorial staff of the museum, there should be a good mission, vision, and values statements for your museum. We should be able to, at least for the next 5 years, set the goals and strategies of your museum. There should be a clear, definitive action plan that we have to generate. What are the objectives, the responsibilities, the timelines of which we have to put together all the education and exhibition programs of our museum. We can only attain this if there will be regular updates and status reporting between the curatorial staff of the museum and the museum board. How will we now implement the things that we had already put together as part of the projects of our university museum? We should rely on policies and bylaws which are generated by the museum board. More importantly, there should be some clear indication of a code of ethics and a code of conduct, including conflict of interests policy. To cite an example of a conflict of interest situation is that if it is an art museum, it is going to be a little uncomfortable for someone who is a gallery owner to sit in the museum board. There should also be very clear meeting and attendance policy for the museum board, because the regular communication between the curatorial office and the board is imperative so that our day-to-day activities of the museum will be smooth and within the directions of the museum board. The museum board should also set the guidelines for recruiting, orienting, informing, and removing board members, the director, curator, or even museum personnel. The guidelines for evaluating museum board members, the curator, and personnel is also something that is put in the shoulders of the museum board. What is more important also is that the university museum must have a very clear museum's collections policy. And there should also be very clear policy regarding donations. This last item is something that you have to look at, especially if you are a university museum operated under the government, because donations directly to the museum might be a difficult procedure because there are certain audit procedures which you have to comply with. This is where a situation perhaps that you have to look at the role of a third party. And what we can see as an example would be the role of alumni associations. If there is an active alumni association in your museum, in your university rather, then they can be the rightful conduit for such donations, both financial or donations of artifacts as well. The umbrella is quite linear in a sense that you report directly to the university administration, right? Therefore, the museum mission and vision should be aligned with the overarching university objectives. Funding and budget, there is the annual appropriation from the university, and perhaps there should be some kind of also a supplemental initiative for fundraising mechanisms. Acquisition and donation policy is something that has to be clearly laid out, as I said earlier, especially the specimen acquisition, purchase, and donation. There should be very clear loan procedures for our museums, and loan procedures involves lending and borrowing policy, because this is a very good platform, I mean the university museums, wherein we can touch base with other universities for some kind of an exchange program of extended loans of objects. Primarily, if there is too much of one item category in our museum and we want to share this with other museums, it will be very effective if there is a clear lending procedures that we abide with. More importantly also is the security and evacuation policy of our museums. We should have a very clear definition of our security procedures, and if need be, how do we apply insurance policies for certain objects that are on loan. And right now, what is also emphasized is that there should be some kind of a written procedure with regards to evacuation when we are hit by disasters, just in case there is political unrest in your community. Also, what is more important is that there should be a very good building maintenance guideline from our board, which will spell out what will be our responsibility when it comes to pest control, temperature and lighting, and general housekeeping of our museum spaces, galleries, or buildings. Again, the museum board is tasked to approve curatorial programs. And what we are envisioning for museums will be for them to come up with quarterly programs, both exhibitions, educations, and extension activities. Personal policy is also something that we need to look at, because as I would predict, for museums run by universities, directors are appointed from the faculty, and some of the members of the museum curatorial offices are contractuals, on-the-job trainees, or in fact volunteers. How do we now manage and make sure that they are provided with ample protection and guarantee of remuneration or even allowances? The more important role of the museum board is help the museum put together its museum collection. Unlike other museums, the University Museum is particularly interesting simply because the collections of artifacts is not only the principal role of the museum, it should also be able to put together what we call study collections. These are artifacts that can be dissected, that can be studied, and not exhibited. As an educational institution, the museum perhaps should be able to clearly put together the management of how to use study collections by the different colleges within the university. There should be again a clear roadmap for exchange agreements with other universities and colleges regarding collections, archival materials, and resources. Then, of course, the management of artifact donation is something that has to be very clear. And the acquisition or digitalization of archival materials is something that we have to be very clearly directed, simply because it is something that we need to support the scholarship component of our museums. Artifact conservation is a key duty of each museum, and Of course, we should also look at the role of copies of replicas for study purposes. The details of a collections policy for museum will be discussed later in this program. And this is just in broad strokes how the board relates to the things that the curatorial unit will have to put together for the museum. To summarize, our university museums should be the showroom of scholarship and research. Anything that we do, be it exhibitions or education programs, must be based on scholarship materials put together by our faculty or by other universities. Our university museum must put together highly informative but audience-friendly exhibitions, taking note that our audience is not only the faculty and students of our university, but the community out there as well. Other than exhibitions and education projects, the university museums must be committed to put together community outreach programs, wherein the participation of the community is highlighted and put together and organized by the museum in order for us to be able to understand and appreciate better the needs of these communities. The University Museum should be the lead agency in the community for collections management and care. There might be some collections not under the care of the museum, but under perhaps the care of the provincial government or even private institutions. They should be able to look up to the university museums in terms of technical assistance when they need this to resolve certain issues of collections care. In this day and age, the university museum, or for that matter, all museums, are challenged to go out of their comfort zones and look at the issue that has been put across under the United Nations, under the UNESCO, wherein we are enjoined to promote diversity. Diversity as a concept is not only in terms of different communities, but different lifestyles, different thought processes. These are the things that we should start informing our communities, our students, and our faculty. Also, what has been a problem that has challenged the world is the issue on climate change and environment. All of these impacts not only in terms of our programs, but in terms of our gathering of artifacts, preserving them, and making sure that we adhere to the call for us to be the tools for this agent of change in terms of attitudes and outlook of our communities. That being said, I hope you now find that the issue of museums cannot be resolved by a simple curatorial unit working in your museums. They have to be inspired, they have to be directed by a museum board. And this symbiotic relationship between the board and the curatorial unit will turn around and make our museums more engaging, more community related in terms of ideas and in terms of outlook. That being said, we hope that you look at the opportunity to put together an effective museum board. This being said, we know that this is going to be something that a university museum's curatorial unit will need the support of an an effective museum board. The museum board will be able to set the direction, will clearly identify what are the doable and implementable programs and projects for the university museum. It's a tall task, but again, it's better that we are forewarned that these are the challenges when we operate a university museum. We will rely on the experience and the wider knowledge of people we are going to elect in our museum board. This will create an efficient dialogue, between the university itself and the museum. The dialogue is always important simply because it will always be the one that will make our museums more engaging and informative and relevant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sir Danny, for that very informative talk on the relevance of museum boards in the universities. Okay, so I think it is important to look that the museum board is very critical in the establishment and setting the direction for the activities of university museums. Now, we would like to open the floor for questions from our participants. Okay, so we are waiting for them to type in the questions, no? So maybe we can start with this first question on where do we start on setting up the museum board?
Well, actually, okay. As an organization, no, under the university, and of course, it is the university that created the museum. What is more important is that the museum itself, when created, perhaps with the director and a few curatorial staff, no, should be able to inform, no, the university officials that a team, no, of organic faculty and administrative officers of the university should be at hand, no, to be able to set the directions and policies of the museum. And as I've said, there should be a unit that will be principally responsible for all the activities of the museum. It is not simple, no, to operate a museum. Principally, you're holding on to very important artifacts or archival materials, and presenting this to the public or even to our students and faculty is always a challenge, no, for the museum.
Okay, thank you, Sir Danny. There's a question from Kelly Ramos from Cagayan de Oro. The question is, how does a lone staff in a university museum request the forming of a museum board?
Well, number one, there should always, as I said, it should start with a dialogue, right? Unless you meet the officials of the museum of the university directly and inform them of your activities. Perhaps you request a meeting, no? And say, these are the directions the museum has laid down. And apparently these directions cannot be more or less instituted, no, without the imprimatur of the university. That being said, I think the officials of the university will already get the point that yes, there is a director that we have appointed, but what are her or his powers, to implement certain things. And it's always not being too what you call lame about it, and saying we assigned you, therefore you can do everything. It is again the sharing of responsibility, that is important, and this is where the dialogue begins. You need a group of people to be able to guide you so that your projects are implemented well. Okay.
Thank you, Sir Danny. There's a follow-up question. Can you actually appoint external members or external, not within the university, to be part of the museum board? Can that be possible?
Yes, if you recall, in my initial, I think, slide, I said that there can be a set of people that we can lump up into a group as what we call ex officio members of the board. They are members of the board, but they do not have what you call veto powers, right? They cannot decide on the elections of certain other people to be included in the advisory board, for that matter. As I said, there can be two sets. You can have an ex officio member, and then you can have an advisory board member. Ex officio members normally are requested, by a museum if there are people, in the community who are leaders, in terms of cultural heritage and cultural heritage preservation, and especially also there are retired faculty members, who are in the community, and perhaps they were also authors of certain publications and certain research materials, which will be important for the museum to access to. And this is where you have a what you call a group or a unit, that more or less they can fall under. And this way, there will be a smoother exchange, perhaps, of materials. And again, as you said earlier, it's in the experience, of others that museums will have to rely onto when they put together museum education and exhibition programs.
Thank you, Sir Danny, for your response. There's a question from Max Teodi Kimilat from Southern Leyte State University. Okay, so the university required him to attend this museum training because he will be crafting a proposal for the establishment of their museum.
Yes.
So the question is, can he already create a board without the physical museum, or it hasn't started yet? Meaning this is still in the proposal stage. Can he actually convene or the museum board already if the museum is just starting?
Well, the best example, of a step to be taken is what the Museo Kordilyera had done, right? I do remember that prior to the opening of the museum, right, the first step that Chancellor Rubilios had done is to put together a set of consultants to support the university in putting to, the university in putting together the museum. Actually, it's very timely, that when you put together your proposal, the role and the connectivities between the museum board and the museum has been set. That is the best opportunity for you to put it together. Not mentioning names, but again, looking at how many people can best fit into your museum board, depending, of course, on the size of your state university, right? And the resources, if there are enough scholars relate scholarship work, done by the faculty related to whatever programs you are envisioning to create. I am very confident that that will be something that your university or your regent, will agree on.
Okay, thank you, Sir Danny. We also would like to acknowledge in our panelists, no, Dr. Ana Labrador is also here. Ma'am Ana is here listening to our webinar now, no, because
Hi, hello, Anna. Hi.
the National Museum also from Kelly. So we will go back to that later. So
Yeah.
this question from Sol Maris Trinidad, which is actually a question for me, and maybe you can also respond. The question is, with the museum board operations in mind, specifically under the guidelines for recruitment, or orientation, informing, and removing board members, are the MK board members the unit heads of the offices mentioned, such as the 3 different colleges, College of Arts and Communication, the College of Social Sciences, and the College of Science. Okay, so the 3 different colleges are, of course, it is led by a dean, but the faculty would convene to nominate their representative to the museum board. So this could be any faculty that are nominated in a faculty meeting. No? It's not necessarily the deans who actually sit there. The Kordilyera Studies Center, automatically, the director becomes the member of the museum board, and the CCA director, the head of the Committee on Culture and the Arts. So they sit on the board. Okay, so the other question from Sol, can the board members come from these units but are not necessarily heads? I think I responded to that. And the second question is, in the MK board, do we understand it correctly that the board members are also part of the manpower of the museum, a working board? No. So in Museo Kordilyera, so the diagram that I showed earlier is only the museum board whose job is on the policy making decisions and that are being done, no, in the museum. The working part, no, or the staff who works directly with the everyday operations of the museum are the director, curator, the collections manager, we have a finance and admin officer, and also we have a group of research assistants, no, researchers, no, who work on the collections, who work on several projects and educational programming of the museum. So the dirty work is actually a separate unit, no, that works in the museum every day and reports every day, no, in the museum. Would you like to add something, Sir Danny, about Sol's question?
Well, I think your response is very clear, no? Remember, the board is supposed to be supervisory only, no? Looking at in broad strokes, they cannot actually, as I've said and what you have said, no, all the projects come from the curatorial unit, right? And the proposal is elevated to the board for approval, right? Approval in the sense that the university knows what the exhibits are, what are forthcoming exhibits, and of course, it is also important that the museum board exists in situations wherein there are certain proposals that come from elsewhere, right? Not from the office of the director or the curator. How are you going to manage, and respond to these proposals, right? This is where the director will need the support, of the board, if this is something that is acceptable, because there are timelines and there are program schedules that have been set already by the curatorial office. Okay.
Thank you, Sir Danny, for that reply. Okay, from a participant from the Marikina Polytechnic College.
Okay.
This college is planning to set up a college museum, and the question is it the responsibility of the museum board in deciding if the museum can be considered as a history or ethnographic museum? If the collection is about history of Marikina, and it is being, since it's the shoe capital of the Philippines, including shoe craft making. So in other words, he is asking, or she is asking, whether it's the responsibility of the board to decide on the nature of the museum, whether historical or ethnographic.
Yeah. Because as a polytechnic college or university, no, it's already telling us what kind of museum is expected to be operated under the umbrella of the school, right? And looking at it, as you said, it has something to do with technology, which is shoemaking industry, you know, and that becomes the roadmap already, you know, more or less, you know, because the history of Marikina can well be appreciated from that point of view, you know, because the development of the city from a municipality to whatever, no, and being included in the regional conglomerate of the NCR, right? The Marikina has evolved drastically already, and that is where I think it becomes more interesting as a museum, and looking at it in terms of developmental situations. Are there implications that you being the center of the shoemaking industry, does it still hold up to now, right? Those are issues which are very interesting for people to look at, right?
Okay, thank you, Sir Danny. This is an interesting question from Walter Osmeña. His question, in case of the university system, for instance, there are different or several campuses of that particular university, and each campus decides to establish a university museum. How will the management of these museums be harmonized? No? So the question of Walter is,
yes.
the system, there are several campuses, and they want to establish their own museums, and the question is, how can the management be harmonized in that kind of setting?
Well, actually, this is where, as you could see, why a museum board is very important. Simply because there will be now resource sharing, of course, and then, of course, the presentation of what are the subjects that will be the main core messaging of each museum, right? And you cannot have similar one and only messaging, right? Therefore, you are just duplicating something that's already pre-existing. That's why I agree with the setup of Museo Kordilyera, because it is set up in such a way that each college has a voice, right? And I'm sure when you already put together the different colleges, no, under the one roof of the state university, what is the core course, no, of each area, right? Is it technology? Is it fishery? Is it agriculture? Or is it economics? Or is it social science, right? That being said, you are far luckier because you'll be able to present, no, a lot of materials under the university system, and I take it as an important opportunity, no? Na you cannot sing the same song all throughout, right? You have to now find out how you share the pie in terms of the information pie, okay? Because each university, it's college for that matter, no? If it is technology, therefore what will be now attendant to, putting together a college museum. Perhaps that becomes now a science museum, no, under the university.
Thank you. So it largely depends on the nature of, for
Yeah.
instance, you have to look for the niche of that
Yep.
particular campus. Like
Yeah.
in the UP system, for instance, we have participants from the UP-Visayas. So there's a Fisheries Museum. So that's
Mhm.
then you have participants from UP Los Baños. They have the Museum of Natural History. And
Yeah.
then you have UP Visayas in Tacloban.
Mm.
And then we have UP Baguio, no, or more.
Mm.
The niche is more on indigenous Cordillera cultures, no. So it largely depends on the nature of the niche that would dictate the
Yes.
nature of the museums.
Yes. Okay.
All right. So, on a related note, on the other side of the spectrum, there's a question from Jessica Nicole Manuel. She is asking, so this is the context, no? So the question is more on museums in transition. And she is asking, how can we establish the foundations for an effective museum board and its underlying policies, whilst the scope of the museum is undergoing a transition phase, no? So this means the program she's Jess Manuel from the College of Home Economics, no? So the program, the context is they're just starting to widening its focus from the collections of one particular department or sub-discipline, and then eventually to encompass the entire collection of the different departments and eventually the entire college. So how
Yes.
do we now address in setting up an effective museum board if this is a museum in transition?
Well, actually, that is again a very good opportunity because it is in transition, right? Therefore, nothing is written on or cast in stone, right? It's in short undergoing an evolution, correct? Now, the response of would be, the reality is that if you are a college with several units under it, right? And if it is home economics, then there should be perhaps clothing, there should be about food technology, and there should be something about hospitality, right? And looking at that, it's a very interesting core of things that your museum must have that kind of faces, no? And it is nice to already look at it. Should it be just a clothing museum, or should it be, the different units under the college? And I don't see any problem with that because all of these units, have a lot of things to inform their publics. Therefore, the changing exhibits perhaps can be well attributed if there are enough galleries, to be able to house individually a changing exhibit, perhaps per unit, looking at it, food and nutrition, and then child rearing, if that is under your college, for that matter, and all others and all the other stuff, right? And this is where also I don't know the delightful component that how the home economics concept evolved in a university, right? When we enter the university, we will have there the College of Home Economics, and then we were just saying, how did it evolve? How did it start, right? Ganyan, ano? So it's also again part and parcel of the historical development, of the country, right? And I think that is something, that you can already more or less put across, into the mindset, of the officers of the college, right? That looking at it, these are the things that we need to to look at. And I think it is going to be an interesting museum if you'll be able to accommodate all of these thought processes, and you are able to understand it more clearly, each unit as they perform, and what are the delightful things that they have put together, what are the things that they have produced, not only for the university, but the community in general.
All right. Thank you, Sir Danny, for that response. So we have a question from Kelly. If we can actually give an idea about the composition of the museum boards, for Museo Kordilyera, Yuchengco Museum, and the National Museum. For the Museo Kordilyera, I think I presented the diagram already on the key people who are composed of the museum board. I'm not sure. The National Museum, you can actually download this, the composition of that.
Yeah.
And then, maybe you want to talk about the museum board at Yuchengco Museum, Sir Danny?
Yes, of course. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, the museum, because the museum of the Yuchengco Museum started and was created because of the need to address conservation and exhibitions of a lot of institutional collections of the Yuchengco group of companies. That being said, looking at it, how do we now preserve this and share this as part of the corporate social responsibility of the group of companies? Therefore, a museum was put together, and principally the anchor members of the museum board were the officers of three key officers of the Yuchengco group of companies. And then, of course, we invited consultants, in the field of Chinese culture. So we have Tessie Angsi in the field of art, visual arts, and other objects. You have Jaime Laya, right? And for contemporary art, we have Miss Kim Camacho, right? And so on and so forth. And of course, the director, Jenny Habilosa, is member of the board. In so doing, we're able to get a more or less a trajectory of what are the projects we need to accomplish. Because as we have already noted, not all museums do is put together exhibits. Therefore, there are a lot of other engagements that we can create, and therefore we can discuss all the other aspects of museum in terms of contemporary art and design, visual arts, right? And of course, Sino-Filipino culture. This can all be put together, not necessarily as exhibits, but extension programs. Therefore, we have lectures and demonstrations, right? And we even have been using our web page, and to discuss and to present the different things under the umbrella of what Yuchengco Museum represents.
Okay, thank you, Sir Danny. There's a related question here about the diagram or the organizational chart that I showed earlier.
Yep.
So if we follow the diagram in the composition of the Museo Kordilyera board, and there is the director of the Kordilyera Study Center who also
Yes.
the board. Does this change if the theme of the exhibit change? Okay, so I think this question is directed to me. The director of the Kordilyera Study Center is represented as the office or the research office of the university, co-equal with the representatives from the three different colleges. Now, the director convenes a curatorial team, no, who actually will decide on the kind of the theme of the exhibition, no, and the research that is available, no, from the Cordillera Study Center or from the different colleges can be tapped, no, as a resource for conceptualizing the exhibitions. For instance, in the Museo Kordilyera, when we mounted the Feast of Merit exhibition, there were already researches done by the economics faculty, no, on the cattle raising, no, among the Ibaloy. We had one from the Anthro department, the output of which was published under the Cordillera Study Center on the Bontoc question by Professor June Prilbret and again others, no. Either these are published in the Cordillera Study Center or they are available, no, to study, that can be studied by the curatorial team in setting up the exhibition, no? So the themes of the exhibit should be decided on by the curatorial team, headed by its director and its curator, and once they are firm, they are now presented to the MK board to decide, no, whether this proposed theme is feasible or there could be improvements in its implementation.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So other questions, I think the tenure of the board is how long, Tita Danny? How many
Well,
years?
actually, that was an ideal setup. One of the things that I considered here is simply because if you have a set of faculty members sitting, in the board, the movement of the faculty is something that you cannot control. Either he will be on a sabbatical leave, he will be on a scholarship grant, or for that matter, he might retire. Right? That's why there is more or less some kind of an assurance that perhaps we can get someone who will be able to be available in the next 2 years, if that is something that is workable. And when I say 2 years, that means 2 academic years, right? Therefore, the continuity of the projects, that have been initiated will go on. That is just a matter of a practical decision why we are saying that, but again, it can be for all intents and purposes something that can be very, very hyperactive, meaning every academic year you are changing. However, as I said, there is something there that is also you can take advantage of, is that the term can be extendable. It can be renewed, right? If the working relationship and looking at it, that there is already that kind of program that is already pre-existing, because the board will have to agree or have to approve the forthcoming school year exhibits, right? It will be nice for that person who approved it to be able to appreciate what they had done and sit again in the board while the projects are ongoing. Those are the things that we should always consider. The effective board is how far they will be able to be an owner, in terms of ideas of the museum. This is again sharing of ideas, and not only them doing the work for you in terms of policy, but they see the fruits of their labor, that this is an effective way of running a museum.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Sir Danny. So this is talking about composition, and who should be in the board and all that, the work that they do. Now, there's a very important question here from Oscar Florendo from the Museo de Oro.
Hi. Yeah.
So they are moving forward with this museum board. No, so he wanted to ask about the logistics. For instance, does the museum board have, like, does it entail budgets, for salaries or honorariums or fees for the board if ever this will be proposed and approved, no, to the university?
Well, this depends upon the organizational operations of the university, right? Because as again, perhaps the director is secondment, right? Meaning a faculty member who now becomes a director as well. He does not get paid separately. There might be some kind of an allowance situation that can be put into use. Again, normally for private foundations, no, the board member gets only paid during meetings. This is what you call honoraria, right? And of course, very minimal cost in terms of what? Perhaps merienda during the during the board meeting, right? But they don't get an additional. I don't think it will be allowed, especially in state universities, that you will be able to get full salary for two different positions, right? Because this position is not a everyday position, right? No, and I think that can be worked out if there is that kind of situation wherein your university will allow honoraria for meetings.
Yeah. So let me just add that for the museum board at Museo Kordilyera, they are provided with very good merienda during meeting. You have to be sure that they have good coffee, good merienda, no, para naman maganda yung usapan during the. And they also get honorarium for attending the meetings, no, and other. Like for the director, you have an administrative load, no, of 6 units from the university. So that's the only compensation that you get, no, in being an MK board, because as a representative to the board, that is part of your committee assignments, no, as faculty of the college and faculty of the university. Yun lang. Otherwise, it's all passion and commitment and free labor, no, free service na for the development of your museum. Okay, so there's an interesting question here from Aurora. Hi, Au Caballero from the Museo Isarog. No? So his question is, can the MK board decide on a situation without affecting the code of ethics in managing the museum? Say, if the board officer is suggesting to exhibit his significant collection to the museum, is this possible? That the MK board member can actually propose to exhibit his own collection to the museum?
Well, actually, it should be the other way around. It should be the director proposing that such an exhibition should be put together. And the collection, again, is something that will showcase extensively, a certain theme, a curatorial theme, right? And again, this is where the concept of extending ourselves to our publics, right? If we invite private collectors, to lend to our exhibits, why can't someone from the university lend and exhibit their collections as well, right? Now, there are certain perhaps sensitivities here. How were they able to acquire these collections, right? Is this related? Is this collection derived out of their extensive field research, right? Or is it a family heirloom that they want to share? And as long as there is an educational value to the exhibit that they are being that they are recommending, then I think you can always consider it, right? But per se, as a collection, it must have some kind of meaning. There should be a curatorial direction, that is very clear. Why this collection? What are these things that they have collected? Are they rare collections that that will need to be presented under the university museum? Are you encouraging your locality, to start opening their chest and sharing these pieces, their heirloom pieces, to the museum, right? And that can be what you call the baul concept, wherein everybody opens up their baul and say, okay, these are some things we want to share, right? And magandang theme, ang the concept of collecting, because it's a passion, right? And it's so nice for us to be educated. What really inspires people to collect, by the way? So you can always have that kind of different concept, curatorial concept, that you can expand and make it an informative exhibition rather than, an exhibition of fine things, what now, right? There should be a relationship, right? Are these hand-me-downs, for example? Are these an inheritance? In the inheritance in families, who gets the best part? Is it the eldest daughter or the eldest son? Those are the things you want to learn in the community, right? And if that is something that this exhibit can share to the public, why not? Right? Therefore, you already the dynamics of families, the dynamics of communities. There's several angles. I cannot be very linear about it and say absolutely no. Right? It depends on the merit by which you want the messaging to be put across. Okay.
Thank you, Sir Danny. So there's a question about what are the core or essential departments of a starting museum. I think this question is very big.
Yeah.
We discuss that in the coming sessions. Dan, okay. Thank you for your question. So there's a question about the tenure of the board members. I think the ideal is 2 to 3 years, no?
Yeah.
And that can be extended in order to polish policies, set up institutions, so that's the ideal tenure.
Yes.
Okay. The question on there are two related questions, whether the library can an archive staff officer and a librarian of the university included in the museum board? Can that be possible? And the other question is, can they also curate, organize, and manage university museums? So for the role of the librarian, what do you think?
Well, actually, if you look at the responsibilities of libraries, right? They have non-book collections, right? This is, of course, put together in an absence of a museum, right? So they have been going on, they have been putting this together and exhibiting them, right? Therefore, they have already the principles of exhibitions and putting together. They have also advantage in terms of conservation issues. They know how to conserve their archival and library materials. Now, what role will this librarian or archivist have in terms of a museum, right? Because very few of us were able to have access into the basic undergraduate courses of museology. It's non-existent, right? And of course, what we have here are already the graduate and the postgraduate courses, and of course, the little opportunities for what you call seminars and summer workshops, right? And therefore, if there will be someone from a college who is not a practicing museologist, but had gone through this, is allowed to be part and parcel of the museum staff, I don't see any reason why you can not have an archivist or a librarian into the system of the museum.
Yeah, just to thank you, Sir Danny. Just to add the role of the archives and the librarian in the museum. So this is in the Museo Kordilyera. This is under the office of the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. Now, the museum taps the resources of the university librarian and the archives. No, they
Yeah.
don't necessarily curate because there is a separate delineation between the university archives and the library have their own independent way of doing things, and it's the university library who may provide, who can provide information in relation to research necessary for the theme or the requirements of the curatorial team. No? So we also work hand in hand with the librarians. No? And maybe the question is, can they also set up their own exhibition? Of course, yes. No, in your libraries or in your archives. No, and like what Sir Danny said, there are none. It's not only about books or the 2D no na materials, but there could be important, relevant, let's say materials that can also be included in the museum. So you can actually do that
Yeah.
independent.
Mhm.
Okay, okay, related question. So I think she's a librarian. She's currently working for a public city library under the LGU and planning to propose a museum in their institution. Their LGU, however, has an existing museum. Currently, she is being she I have been no she is evaluating available potential materials and still reflecting what will be the theme for the exhibition. Given this, how can she come up with a great collection and a clear proposal? So parang ang tanong niya ay, she's a librarian and the city has their own museum, but she wants to set up an exhibition based on their collection. So can this be possible to have an own exhibition of their collection in the library? I think yes, no?
I
Possibly.
think yes, because again, iba ang library resource system, right? And remember, now that you're talking of a different scheme, no? Because this is LGU and not a university museum, right? Again, the history of the LGU, no, is very well under the umbrella, perhaps, of the library, because they are the repository, no, of all of these documents and all of this historical whatever that you have, and even photographs, etc., right? Therefore, I don't see any reason why there should be a conflict, no? Because depende kung ano yung sinet up ng LGU museum. Normally, LGU museums will have permanent exhibits. They will not have something that is a revolving exhibit, right? And that is the advantage of a library, right? A library can come up with a short-term exhibit, no, just to make sure that the viewership and the attendance of libraries are generated. No, the objective is to get more people to their libraries, right? That's why a lot of libraries abroad also have these pocket exhibits, no, to engage the younger people how to read, younger people to how to look at photographs, etc., right? And I think it is possible. I don't think it should be a competition of sorts, right? Because your advantage is you have a different resource material, right? In your disposal.
Okay, thank you, Sir Danny. Okay, now a more logistics related question on who acts as the secretariat of the board, and does the curatorial unit manage the operations of the board as well? Okay, I think let me answer that one. The secretariat of the board is actually the team, the museum team, which is composed of the director, curator, your collections registrar, your researcher, and your finance officer, admin. So those are the secretariat of the board. The second question is, does the curatorial unit manage the operations of the board as well? No. There's a curatorial aspect, no, and then there's a policy aspect of the board. Nagko-complement naman sila, but not really to manage, no, the operation. Museum.
Yep. May I also add on, no? It's important that the secretariat of the board is the curatorial unit of the museum, because you create the agenda, you keep the records, you keep the board updated, right, on what are supposed to be the things to be discussed, right? Everything that comes in is already more or less pre-prepared already. Reports or requests are already abstracted so that the board can just, listen to it in a very professional way, right? And this is where the linkage, the dialogue must be continuing, right? The partnership, of the curatorial unit and the board should be very, very strong.
Okay, there is a question on is it okay to establish a university museum with no museum board and director and curator yet? Okay, we are now in the process of procuring museum interactive kiosks, panel boards, murals, furnitures, and computers for our museum. No? So I think just to rephrase the question, can they establish a museum without a museum board director and curator? And now they have started procuring all the materials, for setting up their exhibition. Sir Danny, would you like?
Well, actually, that is a very odd situation. How were you able to procure all of these things without a curatorial narrative that will direct you, right? And remember, nothing is permanent in terms of an exhibition. You have permanent spaces, but we do not look at things as a permanent exhibit, and this is where the danger lies. When you start opening up the museum, who will answer the questions for you? When these things are already put up, right? What are the more or less the high moments, wherein you will be able to expand a certain item or a certain subject of your museum, right? Highly interactive things are something that you are, as if you're just looking at your computer and you are allowed to just, explore things by yourself. I don't think that is a very nice museum setup, because the engagement again should be personal, right? Engagement should at least be a continuing dialogue, right? And every quarter there should be new ideas, there should be new directions. You look at the pros and cons sometimes of a situation, and you show both sides, etc., etc. This is the engagement. This is the scholarship that we are trying to look at.
Yes, I think for this participant who asked, it's the reverse that what was done. So you set up, you are now procuring all this museum display paraphernalias, mga kiosks and others. But what is now the curatorial narrative of your exhibit without an approving body? So as early as now, please set up your museum board because they are the ones who's deciding on parang sila yung approving body for the exhibition, and of course the basis why you are procuring all of this exhibition. So dapat malinaw yun.
Yep. Agree.
So let's go now to the question on outside the museum board naman po. For instance, for local government unit who wants to establish local museums, how do we classify our museum board and who will be the director of the museum? So LGUs naman po.
Okay. Yes. What is important also in our previous discussions, in the previous sessions, we should always be on the lookout. When a museum is set up by an LGU, is it a program of the municipality or the city, or is it considered just an event, meaning a temporary exhibit? Because that is also one thing that we wanted to encourage LGUs and LGU museums, right? That you should report to the the board of the municipality or the city, right? And that is headed by the vice mayor, correct? Because everything you do should be under law. The appropriation of your budget, the procurement of certain mechanisms, conservation materials or whatever. And more importantly, what is important for LGU museums is that to make sure that the item of the curator is a permanent item under the umbrella of the LGU. It is not the wife of the vice mayor or the wife of the mayor being the curator, and then after their term, everything disappears, correct? This is one way of professionalizing the museum system. And we encourage that all of this should be under in university museums, they abide by certain bylaws created by the board. Right now, it should be the municipal or the city council, no, that will have to put together the system for a museum to operate, right? And similarly, maiiba lang yung configuration, correct? Because again, the approving body will be the board, no? The city or the council board, and then you will have ex officio, meaning your experts in the field, in the community, correct? Again, there is no looking at it while being very democratic about the setup, right? You should always be on the lookout that your museum will not have somebody who will want to stay there forever the rest of her life. Okay. Then that becomes a difficult situation wherein napaka-unbending na ng mindset. And as we were saying, even in the definition of museums, we evolve, right? Depending on what the time would require, right? Therefore, the engagement of our publics is always important. There should be that kind of mindset, no? That a curator or a director may have a different way of looking at things, right? Because that is what a museum should be, right? In the first place.
Okay. Thank you so much. We have 10 minutes left and we have 5 questions. Can you still accommodate?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So in relation to that outside entity of the MK board, there's a related question, no? Under what category should a museum belong if it will be registered as a corporation or non-profit organization and as a separate entity from the university? So the question is, what category is the museum?
Well, by definition, it should be a not-for-profit corporation. You have a choice there. It can be a not-for-profit corporation or a foundation, right? Again, looking at it to be an independent unit, I do not know what you mean. Does it mean not following certain procedural components of your museum? Again, is your system does your system allow this kind of setup wherein another institution within the system can exist in the property of the college or museum, right? Because anything that is not museum, not university operated is a leasing. You technically under the laws, for example, if it is a state university, hindi po pwedeng mag-operate ang isang unit na wala kang personality. Therefore, either you are organic or you are a leasing, right? Then if you're a leasing, then there are certain leasing arrangement that you have to do. You don't own it. Kung physically the museum has set it up or the university had set it up, medyo may komplikado yung situation. It's a case-to-case basis wherein you have to lay down pa more or less what are the parameters by which you are existing right now. But again, there can be a not-for-profit organization kasi yun ang definition of museums. It's not for profit. And it's run, meaning the shares every year is not is not equally distributed to the board members, right?
Sir Danny, for that response.
Mm-mm.
Okay, we have again another logistic concern from most of university museums is this loading, no?
Yep.
By the faculty who's assigned to the museum. So, for
Yeah.
instance, the question is the assigned faculty designated as coordinator for the museum is 15 units, no? Teaching load and no staff assigned, no, to that faculty. Can we actually ask the university administration to change the designation into director and have additional staff? Is this arrangement possible?
Well, I don't know if the item is open, right? You have to create the item first under the university system. And then if that item is created, that's when you can jump ship and you become the director and not a faculty, right? Then that can be done, right? However, again, most of the universities apply the offloading of certain units. That's how I term it, Ikin, no? Wherein you subtracted from your teaching load will be your time as director of the museum, correct? Again, there are pros and cons, no, of having this kind of setup, right? And again, the university is not prevented from hiring contractuals as staff. There is always an item for opening up under the umbrella of researchers or office assistants. No, these are all available under the university system. Therefore, you can fill up, and put together an effective museum curatorial staff by this way, right? And although it's annualized in terms of what you call this, of approvals, of contractuals, I don't look at it as a problem, right? Because the moment the museum person becomes dedicated and loves his work, he's willing to go and through this kind of system, unless the item has been already declared as officially an item under the university system.
Okay, thank you, Sir Danny. But the arrangement, just to tell you, the arrangement with the Museo Kordilyera,
Yep.
being a director gets you 6 units, no, offload your job, no. So you have 6 units as admin node for director, and the maximum that we have in the university is to have 12 units. So 6 units administrative load and 6 units teaching load, no.
Yep.
So the university all have provided a mechanism to deload you from teaching and perform your duties as an administrator. Now, if you think that this is 15 units teaching load, like Sir Danny mentioned earlier, that you can actually hire research assistants, no, to do your work, no, for administrative tasks. So in university, we have administrative assistants, no, or research assistants to deload you from additional work, no. So pwede naman yun. But I think the most important task that you should do is to persuade your university presidents, your chancellors, no, to create an item for the director. Yung sinasabi ni Sir Danny, kasi kung meron kang item na defined, no, for that position, then it would be easier to appoint faculty to occupy that administrative position as director or curator. Like if you're a curator, you're given 3 units, no, in the university. If you're a director, you're given 6 units. Para it's easier for you to navigate in legal terms, no, that you're allowed that, not yung at random, okay, you get 15 units plus your museum work, no. So syempre we are overwhelmed with the teaching position already for 15 units. That's almost 6 preparations, no, for subjects, and then you have museum work. So try to persuade in your university officials to create an item for positions in the museum. I think that's the
Yes. And also, remember, we are pursuing the professionalization of museum work. No? Again, this is something that we have to attend to and address, and I hope the state universities will look at this as an opportunity also. No? Remember, you have to be a superwoman like Ikin to be a director, because that is an everyday job. Even weekends, you have to report. Even if you have to create projects of the exhibit is not easy to put together, mind you. It needs a lot of time and energy and a lot of reading and a lot of research, correct? You even have to go out in the field to do your research. Now, if you are only given that much in terms of your elbow room, it's not much. Kaya tama na sana ma-convince ninyo ang officers ng university to create that specific item, so that therefore the burden of operating and conceptualizing and putting together all of these things ma-facilitate, right? And then the others, as you could say, can be again assigned to be part of your curatorial unit in such a way that hindi nagjo-jeopardize yung operations ng museum, because what we are enjoining state universities is community outreach. It's no longer within your very specific community of the university, right? And that is a very tall task. It's not easy to do. Just putting together what Museo Kordilyera had to put together, wherein they had put together all the craftsmen into one very nice and very, very what you call this, market of traditional arts and crafts, which spilled over not only in the campus, it became already a city project, correct? That's not easy to do. That is not something that you can just autopilot, right? And that is supposed to be something that we need to look at, right?
Okay, thank you, Sir Danny. So on top of teaching and administrative load, you have other social roles. As a director of the museum, you are also a GRO, guest relations officer. When guests are coming, you have to report on Saturday. If there are no staff to clean your museum, nagwawalis ka din dyan sa mga janitorial work. You have to change the bumbilya, fix your exhibitions and all sorts, clean artifacts. So all of these are rolled into one on top. But if you like working and enjoying the things that you do in the museum, then you can go beyond the line of just having an official appointment as a director. Okay, so the last question, Tita Danny, is from Glenn Francis Lactice. And the question of Marie Perez has something to do with the curatorial work. So Marie, we will just entertain your question when we go to curation. And then itong last question from Glenn is on their museum is under a commission which has 5 commissioners and 2 ex officio members and headed by a chairman who is also one of the commissioners. Will you recommend that the existing commissioners become the museum board, or would you recommend to have a different set of members? Okay.
Well, again, the commissioner status is higher than the museum board, I presume, right? And they were created to be a board of commissioners already. There might be some kind of duplication of functions, right? If you will still create another museum board, when they themselves can already be part of the museum board, because the approval system is that who will approve all of this project in terms of allocation is the commissioner, not the museum board. So recommendatory lang yung museum board is going to be a little problematic, I think, no? What is important is the smaller unit you have to report to, the more effective the museum will be. Too much of layering might not be advantageous, at this time. Okay.
Okay, so thank you so much to all our participants for those questions. In fact, madami pang tanong, but some of the questions can be redirected to other themes, no, in our
Yeah.
management training. So we would like to thank Sir Danny for keeping up until 12:03.
No problem. I can go on forever.
Last words to our participants in relation to our topic.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. And tomorrow we will have a session on session by Professor Carlos Tatel on an orientation of the risk and management for museums, disaster and risk management for museums. But this is in particular to the role, understanding the role of actors and local context in disaster and risk management in general. Okay, so thank you so much. Please don't forget to sign our feedback form. This will be the basis now for your attendance, and to make sure we're monitoring everybody so you can go up for level 2. No? So please send your feedbacks. We would appreciate that, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much, and have a good, hearty lunch this afternoon. And thank you so much, Sir Danny, for those inputs. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.